Hello, welcome back to the Hustle versus Flow podcast. We're doing things a little bit differently today because we have our very first guest on the podcast, Mrs. Jamie Johnson. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Now, I want to read this bio of this amazing woman because she has quite the resume, quite the story. So I'm going to literally read because I don't want to miss any of these amazing tidbits. So a native of New Orleans, Louisiana, Jamie Johnson's healing journey began in 2005 when Hurricane Katrina destroyed her hometown of New Orleans. Though safe from the devastating effects the storm took on the city, Jamie and her family had to rebuild a completely new life in a new city far from home. In building that life, Jamie decided to go back to school to acquire education, connections, and resources to give back to her community in a number of ways using her unique brand of coaching combined with healing energy resources. Jamie's resilience has been challenged in unimaginable ways throughout her life. Having missed the opportunity to complete her college education right after high school in New Orleans, Jamie decided to return to school and ultimately earned a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, while supporting a family and raising kids. She recently added to that resume of Master of Science degree in Organizational Development Psychology, impressive, from Avila University in Kansas City, as well as was certified in life and executive leadership coaching, a field she's already been working in and passionate about for many years. Jamie is currently employed in the talent management field at a large regional bank where she uses her influence and voice to ensure diversity is not just a goal. Throughout her career, she has had the opportunity to deploy her unique style of coaching to aid in the growth and development of direct reports, leaders, mentees, contractors, customers, and friends alike for years. Wow, Jamie, that is impressive. And I really want to get to, because that's just scratching the surface, obviously, but I want to get back to this story about Katrina. My goodness.
Okay.
How did this all start? Like, I mean, start at the beginning or start wherever you want, but I want to hear it all. I'm here for it.
Well, I grew up in New Orleans. I was actually born in Los Angeles, grew up in New Orleans. Never planned to leave New Orleans. That was never on my radar. Katrina hit when I was about 25.
Wow.
At that point, I had 2 kids. I had a boyfriend who I lived with at the time. And we were just trying to decide what to do. There's a Category 5 storm coming. Category 5 storms come in New Orleans about every 20 years.
Ugh,
and
geez.
So Category 5s, Category 4s, Category 3s, meh. But when they say Category 5, you're like, okay,
get ready.
We gotta leave. We can't have a hurricane party this time.
Nope.
We gotta get moving. So we left. We stayed in a hotel in Houston and just kind of watched the devastation happen, watched the city flood and had to figure out what to do. We can't go back. Like literally the mayor of New Orleans is saying the borders are closed. You cannot come back.
And you were renting at that time?
I'm sorry?
You were renting at that time or did you have a house?
I actually was a property manager at a 127 unit apartment complex that was halfway through a full renovation.
Oh no.
Which was, it was bad when we went back. But so I wasn't renting, but I was living on site, living on the property. And, we just kind of had to figure out what to do. And, while we were there in Houston, I got a call from my aunt and she said, that she's from New Orleans. She was like, I bought a couch. Somebody need to come sleep on it.
Oh,
I said,
good.
Okay, we'll come to Leavenworth. She actually lives in Leavenworth, Kansas. So we came to Leavenworth.
Okay. I was wondering where is this?
When
did we get to Kansas City?
Yeah. Okay. So she lives in Leavenworth. She said she bought a pull-out sofa and somebody needed to come sleep on it.
That's awesome.
So that's how we got to the Kansas area. And then once we got here, there was no know, we didn't know when we were going to go back, if we were going to go back. So we put the kids in school because it was in the middle of the school year. It was in August. It was early in the school year. We put the kids in school and we found our own apartment, and we were like, okay, our jobs are still paying us, kind of like emergency.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Hey,
Goodness.
and so
Right.
we were like, okay, well, we just need to get jobs. We'll have income coming in from our jobs in New Orleans, and we'll have income coming in from locally, and then that just kind of turned into us not ever going back. Yeah, so it's been a journey. So just kind
Sounds
of
like
roll
it.
with it. Yeah.
Okay, and so at what point, so you've got 2 young children at home, and you have obviously started a new job. At what point did you decide, okay, I want to, get my degree and everything? Because you'd mentioned that you didn't go right after high school as you wanted to, but what did that start? Like, when did your education start? What was your passion? Like, you went from property management. What, how did you get into what you're doing now and that desire, I guess?
Yeah. So basically, I was looking for, I was watching the devastation of Katrina, and I'm thinking about how the city's going to rebuild, if the city's going to rebuild,
Right.
Who's coming back. In New Orleans, I was in interior design. I was taking interior design classes.
Nice.
And I applied for the interior design program at KU, did not get accepted. And I found the architecture program at UMKC, University of Missouri, Kansas City. So along with that program, there was a urban planning and design program. So I looked into both, and I just kind of fell in love with the urban planning and design part of it, where you are, one of the things that they were talking about at the time was helping cities rebuild from natural disasters. That when I called and got more information about the program, that's what they were talking about. They were talking about taking a group of students down to New Orleans to work with community leaders to figure out how to rebuild their neighborhoods.
So that's completely aligned with you, obviously.
Right, in literal complete alignment with what just happened in my life. And I'm like, this is perfect, sign me up. Where do I sign? Let's get it going. So that was a 4-year program in 2005. I actually joined a little late, so I graduated in 2010. And it was amazing. There are design studio classes, like they start you with literally the building blocks of design.
That's awesome.
And then and then they build you up through. And I think probably the best thing for the program about me, or for me, was that you actually do work with community leaders. Like, I worked with community leaders in the Ivanhoe neighborhood in Kansas City, and Columbus Park, and I worked with community leaders at 18th and Vine, and it was a really awesome experience. So shout out to AUPD.
Yeah, that sounds incredible.
Planners.
Now, you mentioned, be like, oh yeah, this feels aligned. Did you yet know, or had you kind of really connected with that alignment of idea? Okay, because I was going to say, like, wow, that's impressive.
Not at that point. I mean, I'm from New Orleans, so there's a lot of connection, with New Orleans, and the history of voodoo and spiritual things.
Oh,
and,
so cool.
So I was familiar with the spiritual realm and the things that go into that, but I had not yet kind of made the transition to understanding it for myself.
Yeah, taking it like mainstream inside of yourself, kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that started, it's actually a really interesting story. That started, so the guy who was my boyfriend later became my husband, and it didn't work out. We got divorced, but at some point during that whole thing, I decided that I wanted to get a tattoo. Just,
seems like a good idea, right?
I think I want to get a tattoo. So it took me about 2 years to decide to get a tattoo, decide what the design was, and find an artist that I liked, that I wanted to do it. So what I ended up getting was a mandala. how that came about is at UMKC, there was a exhibit of Buddhist monks doing a sand mandala. So it was at the building that I had studied at UMKC, the AUPD building, and the Architecture, Urban Planning, and Design building.
Yeah.
And there was a big space, big open space, and they were just, they were Tibetan monks on the floor making this really, really intricate design with sand. And at the end, part of it is the mandala is usually a circular design, has no beginning and no end. It symbolizes the impermanence it symbolizes the cycle of life, that things just keep going around and around and around. And at the end of the exhibit, or at the end of the demonstration, the Buddhist monks blow it away to symbolize the impermanence of life. And I was like, that is like super like cool. Like I sat there for, at least an hour just watching them tediously, like the design was super intricate. So I decided that maybe I could find a mandala symbol that I liked.
That resonated.
So I worked with an artist in Kansas City, and I started to study mandalas, and that led to spirituality.
Sorry, we're just freezing a little bit. Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. No, I think we just you started studying mandalas and everything, and that's what led to your spiritual. Okay, but that's a lot deeper than most people's introduction to spirituality. I have to say, that's pretty impressive. Mine was like a podcast. I was like, "Ooh, this sounds cool."
Yeah, no, mine was literally an art installation.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so mandalas led to yoga, led to mindfulness, led to crystals, and led to everything else. So laws of attraction, all of that.
Well, absolutely. And that kind of leads into, how we met, because of course we met fairly recently at a group Reiki session, which I had never done. And you had never either, right?
No, it was my first time.
So this is our first time. And I dragged my husband, Kevin, along, and we had our crystals laying at the end of the mat. And I think everyone was just a little bit like, okay, what do we expect? Like, what's going to happen here? I think we're all on the same page. Like, know that this is going to be transformational, but we're not quite sure how. And obviously we were being drawn together at some point. And I'm so glad that we have done this. But okay, so now I want to keep rolling with this, because where did you go from? So you've graduated with this urban planning degree, and then how have you turned that into, because you went back and got another degree. So at what point, because you're not working for the bank at this point, you are, where are we in our timeline of Jamie?
So I got the urban planning degree. In 2005, there was like a mini recession type deal where cities were not even planning at that point. So they had all these planning projects that they had put on a shelf because there was not a lot of money for municipal projects.
Right.
Okay. I can't find a job, which that's what it basically boiled down to. So I actually ended up working at getting a job with American Airlines. I was one of the shift managers that just ran the whole airline in Kansas City. During my shift, I was literally in charge of everything and everybody, and making sure planes got on time, making sure people got on their planes, making sure luggage. It was a big, huge operation.
Yeah, it sounds like it's brief.
Yeah, it was a huge operation. It was a lot of work. I was literally clocking, like when you look at your Fitbit, I was literally clocking 10,000 steps before 8 a.m. because I had early morning shift. So I would be at work at 3:45, and then by 8 a.m. I had put in about 10,000 steps every morning. So kept me fit though.
I was just gonna say, I was like, man, I need a job that gives me 10 steps. I'm sitting right around like 2,500 at the end of the day, and this quarantine's not been great. But
American.
So
all right.
for a while.
managed at Frontier Airlines for a while, did cargo. So I kind of just got into the aviation world. And once you get in the aviation world, it is hard to get out
Really? Okay.
because
Yeah.
the
I'm sure it
benefits
pays
are
well.
great.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I've
the
heard that.
benefits are great. The people are great. You know, it's just kind of hard to get out. So you float from place to place and that kind of thing. So, but what happened with all of the jobs, including the one that I had in New Orleans before I left, I found myself coaching people. So there would be, you know, a supervisor who just got a supervisor job because they were good at their job. And there is a huge cavern.
Yep.
There's a huge
I know where
space
you're going with it. Yep.
between being good at your job
Uh-huh.
and being able to lead other people to be good at their job.
So true. So
So
true.
much space in there. So I found myself kind of sitting with people, meeting with people, talking to people about just leadership and how do you make that transition? How do you make the transition from being a coworker to a manager of people?
Right.
You know, it's not easy.
No, certainly
sometimes.
not. Nope.
So I'm at my third aviation job. I'm managing a cargo warehouse. I have a team of 30 people under me. And I'm just sitting in my office one day and I was like, I need to find a way to like get educated about this. I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not getting paid for it. This is additional. So I need to find a way to get educated. And at least even if I'm not gonna charge people for it, um, at least know what I'm doing
Yeah,
is the
you have
correct
the
way.
proper tools. You're not
Right,
like
that I
just
have the
sending
proper
people
tools.
off with like aimless advice and ooh, I hope that was good advice. Yeah. I
Right,
get you. Uh-huh.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I wanted to make sure that I was, coaching properly. And I found out, the funny thing about it is I found out I was doing it all wrong.
Uh-oh.
Mainly because, we wanted to get to this anyway.
Yep.
Like there's a difference between mentoring and coaching, and providing advice and being a therapist. You know,
Yep.
coaching is its own space in which I, as a coach, fully believe in your ability as a client to figure this out on your own.
Right.
I know you're smart enough. I know you're capable. You know, I hold you in high regard. I am an equal to you. And I'm not telling you what to do. I'm holding your hand and walking you down the path, helping you walk down the path of realization for yourself. And I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah.
The other distinction is that, you know, unlike therapists, you know, psychiatrists, psychologists, we don't deal in trauma. Normally,
So important. Yep.
yeah,
So important. You got to deal with
yeah,
your stuff before you
yes,
can take the next
yes,
step, which is absolutely work through your stories is kind of like what we, I guess in the more spiritual realm, like you got a lot of history, you got to work through that first before you can even start to move forward, momentum and everything. So that's awesome.
Yeah. We generally acknowledge your history, acknowledge your trauma, but if it causes a blockage from you moving forward with whatever goals you set, with whatever things that you want to accomplish, if you have a good coach that is also not trained in psychology, psychiatry or psychology, then they will refer you to a professional, a trained professional.
Yeah, they'll pump the brakes on it. They'll say,
they'll pump the brakes. Yeah.
Right.
And they'll recognize that there's a blockage and they'll probably bring that up to you and they'll have a conversation about that. And you can very well, usually I invite clients to come back to me once they've dealt with that trauma, once they've healed from that trauma. But yeah, once we've uncovered something that's blocking your progress, then, that is where my expertise is,
Which I think is incredible because, I think there is a lot of stigma around life coaching that it's just, it's just a cheerleader or whatever. But to be quite honest, like you have a lot of responsibility and you got a degree. Like you took extensive psychology classes so that you could decipher the difference between, honey, you've got a block, and, oh no, you're just not motivated. And yeah, I can help you get to where you want to be. And, no, I've always been so intrigued with the therapy side of mindset, because they're not disconnected. I mean, just because people call this woo woo and everything, it's like therapists know that, you know, it is a lot about mindset, but I just think it's, well, I don't know, for lack of a better term, beautiful that you're like, I've got this side of it. I can tell you that you're blocked, or I can tell you you're fine, but we can work through that. I'm confident. And then we can get you to, you know, to making those intentions and, you know, ticking those boxes and everything. So that's what kind of like, whoa, like that's incredible. And I love that you went from something completely different, like the urban planning. And then, you know, obviously, I mean, that's all of our stories, like whatever will happen, we'll get to where we're supposed to be. And obviously for you, that's coaching. But
I will tell you that they tie together beautifully when you think about leadership in the nonprofit world. So a lot of times in the urban planning world, the leaders of movements, the leaders of, you know, we're seeing that right now, where the leaders of movements are, you know, it takes a lot of energy out of those folks to try to make things happen in systems where things are slow, or they're stagnant, or they're just, you know, the people in power don't want that to happen for this neighborhood or these people or this whatever.
That's a great
facing challenges, being able to face challenges, and a coach can really help you in remaining vigilant, you know, and and clearing your space,
so true,
to be able to continue on. So I love the way they tie together. So
now it's funny because, like, I guess the theme of this podcast is mostly about, you know, women in the corporate world, but I feel like you have taken your experience and obviously you've applied it with your coaching. But I mean, let's kind of go back to your day job, if you will, and kind of talk about a little bit about, like, you're using so many different parts of your mind and your experience to ensure that this particular company is hiring the right people, using your energetic intuition to say, no, that I'm sorry, this is not the place for you, or yes, absolutely, we need more people like you, type of thing. So I want, like, just to kind of like walk us through, like, kind of what you do in your talent management side as well, and how that kind of marries, you know, up to it, I guess.
There's a number of things that I do. My primary job is to consult with managers of people, and ensure that those employees, that those managers are following policies correctly. I am protecting the employees from managers who may have issues with that employee. I am ensuring that the managers follow the correct process of things. So, you know, somebody can't just come in my office and be like, hey, so-and-so did this, I want to fire him. Well, that's not how it works. First, you need to prove to me that whatever they did was, you know, risky enough, you know, and then there's process of law that we have to establish. You can't just decide to let somebody go. I'm also responsible for making sure that we're hiring the right people in certain instances. I have influence in that area. I won't say I'm responsible for it, but I'll say I have influence in that area because we have a whole nother talent acquisition department. What I will say is, I'm not going to name my company because I don't want to speak for them type deal, but I will say that a lot of in human resources, typically, you don't see people like me because human resources is the gatekeepers, basically, 100%. Of the corporate world. So when I'm sitting down with someone and interviewing them, I'm using that intuition, I'm using that energy to try to get a sense of who they are, what they want to do, you know, what their aims are, who they are as a person. So I rely on that intuition a whole lot. rely on their energy reading a whole lot. And the things that I've been taught and been learning through not only my education, but also my spiritual practice benefits me greatly in that area. So, yeah, no, I love my job. And I love that the company that I work for has recognized that in the finance industry as a whole, financial services industry as a whole, there's not a lot of diversity at the top.
Yep.
So a lot of the people of color who work there have been hired in the last 5 years because they are actively trying to make a change and trying to do something about that lack of diversity.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's super awesome. It's super awesome to be on the edge of I don't know what the word is I want to use, but it's just super awesome to be on that leading edge.
Absolutely.
Of progress in
and
that
influential.
way.
Like you're not just on the sidelines looking like hoping that they make the right choice and hoping, and especially in times like these. Now, one thing you said that like you in HR, you probably have a lot of people coming at you. Like, how do you protect your energy? Like, I mean, I am like a sponge for energy. And if somebody's upset, like I will immediately kind of like, I'm empathetic and I will get right down in the dirt with them. I'm like, what am I doing? Right.
Yeah.
But like, how, like, what kind of like mindset techniques, or, you know, I think we kind of talked about like you could even have crystals on your desk at work. Like, how do you keep yourself balanced? How do you keep yourself clear of all that? How do you, you know, make sure, because you have so much information and education and just so much in your head that you are having to use multifaceted areas of your brain, and while keeping it all just very like Zen, right? I mean, do you look at your tattoo? What are you doing? What do you
Not really. It's up on my shoulder, so no, I don't. Usually it's covered. But what I do is I meditate daily, actually nightly, in order to get some sleep, and then I wake up in the morning and I meditate. I also have this 2-minute meditation that I love. There's an app called Insight Timer.
Timer. We'll have to put that in the show notes. Yeah.
Thousands of meditations on that app. There's one on there that I love. It's called 2-minute meeting prep. It's like a 2-minute meeting preparation. So I love that one. It's only 2 minutes long, so I can just pop my earbuds in. And,
awesome.
Yeah, and prep for a meeting. There are chakra clearing meditations on there. There are meditations for fear. There's meditations for anxiety. There's meditations for
That's
all
a great resource.
Shout out to Insight Timer. I don't know who runs it, but I love it.
Yeah, we will definitely put that down in the show notes. That's awesome. I had no idea about that. Okay, so okay, and we want to know specifically, what was the crystal? Because I know when we had our conversation, you were telling me you had a crystal on your desk that helps with something very specific.
So I have a number of crystals. We
like crystals.
We love crystals.
That's a whole nother episode.
I have blue apatite. I have calcite. I love calcite. It is a solar plexus. It helps with solar plexus chakra, and that helps me be authentic and be myself, which is, to be honest with you, something that Black women don't get to be in the world sometimes, because sometimes you want to tone it down or you're afraid to speak out. But I just always want to show up as my pure, authentic self, regardless of who has opinions on that. That's one thing. I also wear I'm actually wearing it now, it's in here somewhere, Tree of Life. Lapis lazuli.
Yes.
It's throat chakra. It helps with the throat chakra to be able to speak, say what you need to say and say it clearly. So that is an awesome way for me to use my influence, not downplay my influence, and use my voice
Absolutely.
to speak up for whatever I feel like is right. I actually have a story about that. I just spoke up in a meeting a couple of weeks ago with weekly, we have a staff meeting.
Yeah, of course.
There are 14 of us total, including my 9 coworkers, and then 2 managers, and then our manager's manager.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not 14, but there's some people in there that I'm missing. But either way,
it's okay. I'm a designer. I'm not a mathematician. You're good in my book.
I do not have a degree in math. So there you go. But we were talking about the civil unrest that's happening.
Yep.
And racism, and our CEO sent a beautiful email to the company to just kind of reaffirm our culture, reaffirm our commitment to inclusion and diversity, and talk about what we're doing to ensure, like I said earlier, that's not just the goal, that it is something that we live. And so I got teary-eyed when our director brought it up. I couldn't say anything. So a couple weeks later, we're in the same meeting. We have the meeting weekly. I had a lot going on that day. My energy was all over the place. But I put on my home desk, I put my pendant on, and I had my blue apatite, and I also had my rose quartz because I really wanted to open my heart and speak from my heart. So rose quartz is an excellent heart chakra crystal that allows you to not only open your heart and be accepting, but also be authentic.
Yeah.
So I talked to them about a conversation that I had with a young lady who's really not dealing with all of this very well. And her manager recognized that. The young lady I spoke to is African American. Her manager is not. Her manager cares about her deeply, and she said, I asked her if she's okay. She said she's okay, but I know she's not. I can see she's not okay, and she's not dealing with this, and I don't know how to talk to her about this. I need your help. I need help helping her. And I thought that was beautiful. Absolutely. So I talked to them about that, and what I said to them is that we've got to understand that right now, Black Americans, African Americans are dealing with grief. And it's a complex grief because it keeps happening and keeps happening. And nobody really is paying attention to it except for the people who are affected by it. And we've got to understand that grief is, there's a cycle of grief. Elisabeth Kubler-Ross wrote a book on grief, on death and dying, and then she wrote a book on grief and grieving. She wrote a number of books, but the cycle of grief includes anger, depression, acceptance, bargaining. There's another one that I can't think of off the top of my head right now.
So important though.
Yes.
But everyone's dealing with it differently.
Exactly. And everybody's dealing with it differently. All of those are absolutely normal. So as a group of talent management consultants who advise managers who are dealing with people, we have to, I challenge my coworkers to be careful how they respond when somebody comes to them and says someone's angry and I don't know how to deal with it, versus they're sad and I don't know how to deal with it, versus they're acting like nothing's going on at all and I'm trying to talk to them about it, and understand that what's happening is that people are grieving. Absolutely. People are grieving. They may be grieving for, and I'm not just talking about Black people, actually. Black people are grieving, but, I'm getting the education. I've had some conversations, some eye-opening conversations, that there is a huge segregation of knowledge around Black history, 100%, and American history.
Just not knowing, like you don't know what you don't know, and you just have to have a conversation.
Right. And there are some what I would consider common knowledge of Black history that I'm finding out that a lot of my friends who are not Black people had no idea. You know,
Yep.
I spoke with a woman last week who had no idea who Emmett Till was. Ruby Bridges, the 6-year-old girl who was the first Black person to integrate an all-white school. She was 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the struggles that her parents and her family dealt with. You know, there were people who do not know that story. So when we talk about grief, when we talk about the cycle of grief, yes, Black people are grieving, but white people are also
Mm-hmm.
going through a grieving process, learning that, you know, there's this history that they don't know.
Yep.
It's literally like finding out somebody you love is an absolutely evil person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm.
And it's that waking up, you know, you're grieving what you thought was your
Trying to process it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to process as well. That's so hard to process.
And then trying to in turn educate your children on that, like having no idea that these stories even happened, trying to collect them as quickly as possible, process them yourself, and then in turn educate your children so that, you know, like, hey, and as quickly as possible, really, like, hey, we have this responsibility, and where do you start? What do you know? And I think, like I had kind of mentioned before, it's just all in a conversation, just listening, like, and I love the cycle of grief and just identifying, like, you have to know that everyone is in a different place. Everyone is grieving differently, and we'll process that differently. That's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a collective grief. We're all grieving together, and we're all in a different place, you know. And I think we all have to understand that. You know, I've been having some amazing conversations with people. I've also had some not so fun conversations with people.
I bet.
But you know, just having that, just having the conversation is like, you're finally listening, you're finally hearing us. And I know it's hard, and I know it's uncomfortable, but it's going to bring us all to a better place. I truly believe that it's going to bring us all to a better place. So.
And speaking of that better place, like I kind of want to get into, like, obviously you're coaching, and you've kind of told us a little bit about, you know, the clients that you have taken on, or the clients you'd like to take on. But I mean, you also have a bunch of other stuff going on. You've got your job, you've got 3 children, you have your coaching business. And I know you've mentioned to me that you're pretty active in your sorority. Tell me about the things that you're doing outside of, you know, all of these different roles that you're playing as mother, as, you know, talent acquisition, as, you know, like what, I kind of want to hear, like, what, because that's a big part, especially for you. It sounds like you're expelling a lot of energy to this one thing, which is what you're being called to do right now, obviously.
Yes. I've been fighting this calling for a long time. Let me just first say that. You know, just everybody has their process of finding their purpose and finding their calling. Oh, gosh, and you know, I have been a part of some sort of social action probably since I was like 5 years old.
That's amazing.
Like the first thing I remember about anything social action was my mom literally taking me into the voting booth with her. It was me and my sister, and we would go in the voting booth with her, and I got to press the button. Well, we switched off, but I got to press the buttons for the candidate that she was voting for. And then my sister got to hit the big red cast your vote button. You know, so we picked everybody and then submit. And you know, that was of course that was the electronic voting booth. Before it was the, you know, turn the lever knobs and then pull the whatever it's called. But you know, I've literally been a part of this my whole life. My dad was he marched for the right to vote in Alabama, Fort Deposit, Alabama. He grew up in Fort Deposit, Alabama, marched in Birmingham. Wow. My mom was organizing communities when we were little kids. We were a part of a city council race that was divided by literally like 26 votes.
This is in your blood. This is a legacy that you've been
Yeah,
depressing for
it's a
too long, it
legacy.
sounds like.
It entirely, you know, and I won't call it suppressing. I was raising kids. We'll
So
put it
true.
that way.
Yeah.
You know, I
Hey,
had
good,
little kids.
good
So
for you.
now
Yep.
that my kids
Yep.
are, yeah,
Yeah.
I was being a responsible mom and not you know, doing that.
Absolutely.
But now my kids are like 19 and 17 and 9. So they can make their own sandwiches and I can go do some other work.
Yeah.
But you know, I am a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And we also have a legacy of social action.
Mm-hmm.
Our first official act as a sorority, as a official or organized sorority, was a suffragist march. So, you know, I mean, it's just something that I've not only grown up doing, it's something that the organizations that I'm choosing to be a part of have a history of doing. And, you know, I just got named for my little chapter in Leavenworth, just got named social action committee chair. So I'm
Awesome.
excited about that.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Just recently, thank you. Just recently, we had a march in Parkville. I don't live in Parkville proper. I live just outside the city limit. Like I could walk to the city line.
Same here.
But
Before we move, we live,
yeah,
I know, just a wonderful community. We just live right
yes,
outside too, but it's,
right,
love that
right,
community.
right. Yeah. But they just did a unity march a week and a half ago.
Uh-huh.
Today's Sunday. Actually, it was a week ago today.
I know.
They
What's
did
happened
the
lately?
yeah, time's flying right now. They did the unity march. I spoke with the mayor. I spoke with two of the orders. There are some happening.
Oh, we're just breaking up just a little bit. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you
Oh,
fine.
perfect. Okay, good. Okay.
Is it
So,
me?
no, you're good. No, it just, the last thing I heard you, I had the opportunity to speak with the mayor and then we started
Okay,
to break
yeah.
up a little bit. Yep.
Okay. So after the march, I had the opportunity to speak with the mayor, gave her my business card, told her that I was available if she needed anything. I
Nice.
do work in human resources, so even if they need a consultant to come in and, you know, kind of review their hiring practices and see if they have diversity concerns. I spoke with the organizers of the march, so shout out to Channing and Stephanie Doss, who organized the march in literally like 1 week.
Wow. I saw
Spoke with
pictures. It
them.
looked incredible.
It
Great
was
turnout.
incredible. It was about, I think I want to say it was between like 500 and 600 people.
That's
It was
awesome.
incredible for Little Bitty Parkville. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to them. There's some community involvement initiatives that are coming up, some committees that maybe need to be formed, and I told her that I would be available to do whatever she needed me to do or sit on committees. Yeah, I'm super excited about all of that.
I love that. And I know you mentioned, because we talked about this, how you thought that it
Mhm,
was obviously your calling because you have passion for this, you have a background in
mhm,
it. I know you mentioned that you grew up watching your parents, you know, be very active in their own communities. But one thing that
mhm.
really stuck out for me is how you looked at it like you are the perfect person for this because you're bringing your practices with it. Like you're bringing that love, you're
Right.
bringing that balance, you're bringing
Yes.
that, you know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need this to come from a very specific place. And I need to make
Right.
sure that I'm helping recharge people's energy because
Yes.
you, like you said,
Yes.
it can get drained so quickly. And, you know, the worst news can just really downward spiral anyone. And I think that's
Absolutely.
so important that someone like you is not just, again, not just using your experience with, you know, your HR experience, you know, and things like that. You're really saying, okay, I am the perfect person for this. I want to step up because I know how draining this can be and I want to help. And
Yeah.
I love that, you know, being involved and everything.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask, and I want you to be able to kind of give your own shout out here. How can people, you know, contact you? How can they get involved? How can they collaborate with you? Or, you know, what's your, give us a little rundown. How do people find out? How do they find you?
Yeah. Yeah. So my Instagram is JJOI321.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Facebook as Jamie Johnson. I am developing a page because even though I've been coaching for a long time, I've never actually jumped into the business side of it,
Yep.
like
It's all word of
actually
mouth.
trying to do
Mm-hmm.
marketing and do. Yeah, it's always
Yep. Which,
all has been word of mouth, and I've done well there.
yeah,
But it's time to start getting
good.
serious about the business side of it. So I am in development of a website right now. My website will be Celestial Grace. So
Oh, love it.
CELESTIAL Grace
We'll put
dot
we'll put
net.
this down in the show notes. No need to be
Yeah,
physically jotting
awesome.
something down. But yeah, I'll put
Yeah,
all
yeah,
of Jamie's contact info below.
yeah.
Now, Jamie, before we wrap up, you shared with me a number of kind of
Yes.
quotes from your grandparents, and I said you gotta wrap us up with one of them. And you told me you'd choose one, and you've
Yeah,
got several, but give us
yeah,
some wisdom from your grandfather.
yeah. So my grandpa used to say all the time. So him and my grandmother actually used to give us these things, and we thought they were just like, advice in the
Uh-huh.
moment, but they were actually life lessons. Um, and I'm sure my Aunt Judy will be listening to this podcast because I told her about it. She's super excited. But my grandpa used to say, you got to stop and throw the ball. And we used to think, we did a lot of road tripping. We actually thought he meant like pull on the side of the highway and, get out the softball and, play catch or something. That's not what he meant at all. And I think it even more is in alignment with, why I do this work. You gotta rest. You have to enjoy the
Yep.
fruits of your labor. You gotta work.
100%.
Yes, you gotta have an incredible work ethic, but you also gotta sit down and be quiet and be still sometimes and
Mm-hmm.
just enjoy. Be mindful and just enjoy what's going on around you. And that's one lesson that I carry with me. There's 1,000 of them that they used to say, but that's one that I carry with me every day.
I love it. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for telling us a little bit
Of
about
course.
yourself and your background and being our very first guest on the Hustle versus Flow podcast. Again, we
Thank
will
you.
link all the information about Jamie in the show notes. I can't wait to see what you do next and like how far
Yeah.
you can take it. So thank you,
Yeah.
Jamie, again.
I'm excited. Thank you for having me. I'm
Yes,
super
of course.
excited.
Thanks, guys. We can tune in next week. A new episode is released every Friday where we have simple mindset techniques that you can use to make big impacts in your life. Thanks again, Jamie.
Thank you.